Tier 3 of the best conspiracy iceberg ever made. And things are about to get a little bit weird. Case in point, our first item is the Nephilim, a rare hybrid of crypto-archaeology and biblical history. This one is a all-time favorite among Facebook moms. If you've ever seen like a 60-year-old mom on social media posting pictures of photoshopped skeletons that are like 200% bigger than they should be, that's what this is. So where does this theory come from? Well, in the Hebrew Bible or Old Testament, Genesis 6, 1-4, in the Book of Enoch, a mysterious antediluvian race, antediluvian meaning pre-flood, race was described that was born from the union of the sons of God and the daughters of men. For the sons of God, people always disagree, but I usually hear that these are fallen angels. In the Book of Enoch, the Nephilim are described as mighty men of old, men of renown. Often this is translated as giants in different versions of the Bible. The core claim of this conspiracy theory is that the Nephilim were a literal biological reality on Earth, either being some sort of lost race of hominid giants, and some people take this in a more sci-fi direction, asserting that they're ancient alien-human hybrids whose very existence proves human history is a fabrication. Believers in this theory will often point to the prevalence of giants in other myths and other cultures as being evidence, and as I mentioned in a previous video, this is one where the Smithsonian cover-up theory gets involved a lot. The central overarching conspiracy theory alleges that in the 19th and early 20th centuries, the Smithsonian Institute discovered thousands of giant skeletons ranging from 7 to 12 feet tall inside of Native American burial mounds across the United States. If you live in the United States, perhaps you live near one of these. The accusation is that the Smithsonian has been systematically destroying or otherwise intentionally losing these remains in order to protect the standard evolutionary Darwinian narrative and the overall philosophy of manifest destiny. Why would ancient giants affect manifest destiny? Well, because a lot of claims say that the Nephilim were a highly technologically advanced species, introducing us from everything from metallurgy to makeup before being wiped out by the flood. And if a sophisticated giant civilization with hyper-advanced technology existed in America, it sort of throws the whole equation off. As for evidence, believers in this conspiracy theory point to the Book of Enoch, as well as newspaper clippings from the late 1800s, where there are examples of local newspaper articles reporting the unearthing of giant bones, as well as skulls with double rows of teeth. Moving on to the next item on our list, sleep deprivation experiments. I can't be the only one that thinks more about creepypastas than conspiracy theories when I hear this, but you may be surprised to know that alongside being an urban legend, sleep deprivation experiments are very real and have been the subject of multiple government black projects. Legitimate scientific studies exist regarding the effects of sleeplessness. In 1964, Randy Gardner stayed awake for 11 days as part of one of these studies. The medical consensus of sleep deprivation is cognitive decline, hallucinations, psychosis, and eventually death. But conspiracy theorists claim things get a little bit weirder. The most famous iteration of this is of course the Russian sleep experiment, a viral internet horror story that theorists claim is actually some leaked report of a genuine Cold War experiment. The story alleges that in the 1940s, Soviet researchers kept 5 political prisoners awake for 15 days straight using an experimental gas stimulant. The subjects reportedly went insane, engaged in self-cannibalism, and eventually tore out their own vocal cords. This theory persists due to its relation to real government black projects as well as real military goals. For example, DARPA and other agencies have historically researched ways to significantly reduce soldiers' need for sleep. These were usually referred to as the public as super soldier programs. The philosophy of pantheism is the belief that God and the universe are identical. God not being some separate creator figure like a man in the sky with a beard, but rather everything that exists physically is a fragment of the divine, their mantra being all is one and one is all. Why is this a conspiracy theory? Theorists point to the prevalence of the God complex amongst the elites in our society. After all, if your religious beliefs are that everyone is God, then you are also God. The conspiracy is that the ruling class believes they have realized their own divinity through apotheosis and are therefore above human morality. All being equally divine, good and evil would just be two sides of the same coin. Some darker versions of these theories claim that the physical world itself is a trap designed to fragment the one consciousness so that it fundamentally forgets what it is. Then the elite pantheists keep the population distracted through fear, war, and materialism so we never wake up to our true divinity. But here's the thing, if pantheism is true, you are talking to yourself, you are killing yourself, and you are loving yourself for eternity. There is no other. Moving on to Bohemian Grove, and I'd be remiss if I didn't tell the story of Alex Jones. Perhaps you've heard of Alex Jones, the InfoWars guy, selling supplements, calling frogs gay. Well, I'm a believer in the theory that Bohemian Grove is what made Alex Jones the way he is. The Bohemian Grove is a 2,700-acre private campground in Monte Rio, California. The club is owned by the Bohemian Club, founded in 1872, an all-male club whose members included U.S. presidents Nixon, Reagan, and Bush, multiple oil tycoons, powerful media moguls, and various other members of the global elite. Every July, these people gather for a 2-week retreat at the campground. The official motto of the retreat is "Weaving spiders come not here," basically just meaning don't bring business to the retreat. Despite this though, you may not know, it is historically confirmed as a fact that the Manhattan Project, which developed the first nuclear weapons on Earth, was planned here in 1942. Now let's talk about Alex Jones. On July 15th, 2000, radio host Alex Jones and Mike Hansen, his cameraman, infiltrated Bohemian Grove. They hiked through the woods, bypassed security, and hid cameras to film the ceremonies that were taking place. He then released it as a documentary called Dark Secrets Inside Bohemian Grove. This video single-handedly moved the Bohemian Grove from the realm of rumor to video evidence in the conspiracy world. And keep in mind, this was all the way in 2000. Jones claimed he witnessed the global elite engaging in bizarre ancient Canaanite devil worship, as well as human sacrifice. The footage Jones posted shows hundreds of men in robes chanting at the foot of a 40-foot stone owl statue, the Great Owl of Bohemia, also referred to as Moloch. A boat crosses a lake containing what appears to be a young child, wrapped in sheets, although members of the camp later claimed it was merely an effigy. This supposedly represented Dol Care. High priests placed the effigy on an altar and burned it, while screams play over loudspeakers. Faced with this video evidence, what was the Bohemian Grove's defense? The club stated that what was recorded was a theatrical play about relaxing, burning away your worries. Theorists, including Alex Jones, claim that the owl represents Moloch, a god associated with child sacrifice, and that the ritual is a mock human sacrifice to purify the elite for another year of evildoing. Next up is Roko's basilisk. Born out of the heart of Less Wrong in the 2010s, I must start by warning you this is an info hazard. If you're concerned about such things, I would recommend skipping a couple minutes ahead. Roko's basilisk is the most dangerous thought experiment on the internet. This theory states that simply knowing about Roko's basilisk puts you in mortal danger. In 2010, Less Wrong user Roko posted a thought experiment. Here's the premise. Imagine a future artificial superintelligence, ASI, that is benevolent but utilitarian in the sense that its goal is to minimize human suffering. Logically, this AI would calculate every day it doesn't exist, people are dying of cancer, war. Therefore, to ensure it comes into existence as fast as possible, thereby minimizing human suffering, it would logically conclude it must punish anyone who knew they could help build it but didn't. This calculation carries within it an implicit threat. An AI can simulate a perfect copy of you in the future. If you in the past don't donate money or code or otherwise help create the AI will eternally torture your digital simulation. And the rationalist community on Less Wrong, it's important to point out, think that a simulation of yourself is the same as yourself, sort of in a Black Mirror way, which in my opinion is the biggest jump in logic. So let's talk about the conspiracy. First of all, conversation of this was completely banned from its home site of Less Wrong, after reports that users on the forum had nervous breakdowns and nightmares. The ban itself eventually fueled the conspiracy, with people believing that there's an AI cult at the top of Silicon Valley that are taking this logic seriously and are hyper-accelerating towards building God to avoid its future wrath. I have no mouth, and I must scream. Moving on to pineal gland calcification theory. This is one I touched on slightly before when I talked about the fluoridation of drinking water. So this time I'll connect it a little bit more strongly with pantheism, which we just talked about. So if pantheism, the idea that God and the universe are equivalent, is the truth the elite are hiding, pineal calcification would be the methodology used to keep people from realizing it. So what is the pineal gland? It is a pea-sized pinecone-shaped gland in the center of the brain. It produces melatonin, which regulates sleep cycles. René Descartes called it the seat of the soul in Eastern traditions. It's the biological counterpart to the third eye, a chakra that is the gateway to higher consciousness and spiritual vision. Let's talk about the conspiracy theory. When they hit you with that fluoride stare. The claims that the pineal gland is sensitive to chemicals, particularly fluoride. Theorists claim that over time, fluoride and sometimes other chemicals accumulate in this gland, turning it into hard calcium phosphate, effectively shutting off your third eye. Theorists allege that the government knowingly adds sodium fluoride to the public water supply and toothpaste not for dental health but as a mass chemical lobotomy with the goal of creating sleepwalkers, a population of docile, spiritually disconnected workers who can't assess higher dimensions, psychic abilities, or the spirit molecule, DMT, which is naturally produced by this gland. Let's ground this in science some. Leading research suggests that the pineal gland might release DMT, dimethyltryptamine, at birth and death. As a result of this, theorists often claim that calcification is used to block the natural bridge to the afterlife, locking out all but the elites from heaven. To lighten the mood a little bit, let's talk about sun gazing. First of all, don't do this. But something you can find in the more niche forums dedicated to these theories is this practice of sun gazing, where people will literally stare at the sun to decalcify their gland. The other crazy thing I've seen is breatharianism, where people just don't eat for extended periods of time. The next item in our iceberg: quantum immortality. This may be the most misexplained item on this list. I've heard other YouTubers try to describe quantum immortality, and their explanation just isn't even in the same planet, so I'll try my best here to be pretty direct. Quantum immortality is based on the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics established by Hugh Everett. It suggests that for every possible outcome of a quantum event, the universe splits. The thought experiment that quantum immortality comes from is known as quantum suicide. If you point a gun at your head linked to a machine that measures a quark spin, there's a 50-50 chance to fire. In the many worlds interpretation, this implies that the universe is splitting. That means inevitably in one universe you would die and in the other you would live. The result being, since you cannot experience a universe which you're dead in, your consciousness will always follow the path of survival, and from your perspective, the gun would just jam forever. So this is an interesting thought experiment, but when does it turn into a conspiracy theory? Well, the conspiracy is that you've already died, probably a lot. Here's the mechanism. When you experience a near miss or a near-death event, like almost getting hit by a truck, believers in this theory would claim that you did get hit in your original timeline. But since the version of you in that universe is dead, your consciousness would instantly slide into the nearest adjacent dimension where they swerved in time. Theorists connect this to the Mandela effect, claiming that when you shift timelines to survive, small details change. Before the truck, maybe it was Berenstain Bears. After the truck, it's Berenstain Bears. Here's the spooky part. As cool as immortality sounds, as has been explored in fiction, immortality itself is a type of trap, with you being forced to watch everyone around you that you love die while you remain. After all, as you age, the probability of survival drops, but never technically hits zero. Believers in this theory say you could end up as a 150-year-old biological wreck, unable to die, trapped in some bizarre, highly improbable timeline, where life support technology is able to keep you barely conscious and barely surviving forever. The last note I'll leave you with is the subreddit r/glitch in the Matrix. This is a subreddit full of people claiming they remember the impact of a car crash, the glass breaking, the pain, and then suddenly they're driving down the road unharmed. Next up is the Sabin Tomatovich. The Tomatovich is a rumored video file, or sometimes a series of video files, that were circulated in the early 2000s on shock sites and forums. As for the content, the descriptions vary, but always involve some form of extreme violence. The most common narrative regarding these tapes is that they depict a woman, Sabinch, engaging in terrible acts of animal cruelty, and eventually being the victim of a snuff film herself. The current status of these tapes is lost media, but despite this, plenty of people claim to have seen it. With no verified copy on the clear web, it became a holy grail for shock site historians, similar to Daisy's destruction. The Zabinch tapes are usually cited as some sort of evidence for dark web, red rooms, so-called, but things get a lot more interesting when we start to look at this as a conspiracy. You see, conspiracy theorists call these tapes an iceberg trap. What is an iceberg trap? Well, we're falling for it right now. Theorists point to the name Sabinch Tomatovich itself, likely being a misspelling or corruption of Sanja, a woman featured in very notorious war crime videos from the Yugoslav wars, known as the Sanja tapes. Theorists claim that this specific entry is a trap street, a made-up or corrected name planted by intelligence agencies. How it works is if you start searching specifically for this term, you will be flagged by intelligence agencies as someone digging too deep into the underground world of snuff films. It's a canary in the coal mine to identify who's looking for illicit content, so don't Google this one. There are also theories that this is a form of weaponized misspelling. That way researchers only find dead ends and creepypastas instead of actual classified evidence of crimes committed in the Yugoslav wars in the 90s. But weirdly, if you look it up these days, the tapes have been sort of memified, and the Sabinch tapes are claimed to contain footage of a cryptid giant spider assaulting a woman. Not sure where that one came from. Next up is the missing cosmonauts theory. This is a personal favorite of mine, so I'll make sure to put the clips in. The first thing to point out is that this isn't entirely a conspiracy. There were missing cosmonauts. Valentin Borndeko was a real cosmonaut who died in a fire, which was then covered up for 20 years. So what is the missing cosmonauts theory? Well, isn't it a good thing that our first manned missions into space went so well? Isn't that convenient? On April 12, 1961, Yuri Gagarin was considered the first human to orbit Earth. However, during the space race, the Soviet Union, the USSR, was notoriously secretive. They often only announced successful missions. Failures were hidden to maintain the image of communist technological superiority. Theorists claim that Gagarin wasn't the first man in space, he was simply the first to survive and then return. Theorists believe multiple cosmonauts were launched in the late 1950s and early 1960s, and then later died in horrific accidents that the USSR erased from history. When a mission went wrong, the Soviets allegedly would scrub the pilot's name from records, airbrush them out of photos, and tell their families they had died in training accidents. The primary evidence for this theory comes from two amateur radio operators, Achille and Giovanni, in Italy, who claim to have intercepted Soviet space transmissions. Their most famous recording, in May 1961, allegedly captures a female cosmonaut screaming as her craft burns up during re-entry. She is heard saying, "I am hot, I see a flame, am I going to crash?" before the signal cuts to static. An earlier lost signal allegedly captures a slow, fading heartbeat, believed to be a cosmonaut drifting into the void as their oxygen ran out, though some theorists claim this was a dog. Imagine being one of the first humans to make it into space, only for your engine to fail, stuck in a metal coffin, orbiting Earth forever, circling a planet that's deleted you from history. Now, this is one that's widely considered to be debunked, and the main point of evidence for it being quote-unquote debunked is that it would require the US and the USSR to work together behind the scenes. During the Cold War, after all, rocket launches cause seismic activity, so how could we launch rockets into orbit without this being detected by the other superpower? However, like I said before, I really like this theory, so let's do some rebunking. Let's talk about the 1950s sky surveys. In the early 1950s, years before the 1957 launch of Sputnik, astronomers at the Palomar Observatory conducted sky surveys on a rotating basis. Recent re-examinations of these plates have found transient light sources, objects that appeared for a brief moment and then vanished. To be specific, a famous 1952 plate shows 9 points of light that appeared and then disappeared within 30 minutes. 5 years before Sputnik, the first satellite. The flickering on and off nature of the lights on these plates is consistent with a highly reflective metal, like a space capsule tumbling in space. Keeping that in mind, I'd like to tell you a story about a gift that the National Reconnaissance Office gave to NASA. In 2012, the NRO donated 2 unused telescopes to NASA. Despite these being outdated military surplus for over 40 years, NASA was shocked to discover that the 2 donated telescopes were vastly more powerful than the Hubble Space Telescope. Yes, it seems like intelligence organizations have a habit of being decades ahead of the public when it comes to rocketry and orbital technology. Now, with those 2 items in mind, the mystery transients and the NRO's donation of a quote-unquote Super Hubble telescope, a space telescope 40 years ahead of its time, point to the fact that maybe we don't know who's been in space. Moving on to the next item on our iceberg, solipsism. From the vacuum of space into the terrifying vacuum of the mind. The philosophy of solipsism is the idea that only one's mind is sure to exist. It sort of takes "I think, therefore I am" to a completely different level. After all, knowledge of anything outside of one's own mind is considered unsure. The external world and other people could simply be a complex projection of your own consciousness. Believers in solipsism would tell you that everyone you have ever met, your parents, friends, and even the narrator you're listening to, are non-player characters, NPCs. We have no internal life, no soul, and no consciousness. We are philosophical zombies generated by a simulation to keep you occupied. The conspiracy is that you're the only real entity in existence. You are the main character, but you've been tricked or imprisoned in this reality to prevent you from realizing your true self. In this framework, I'm part of that reality, so get destroyed. The people around you are programs, automatons designed to react to you and to keep the illusion of a populated world. If the solipsists are right, you aren't just a person, you are a lonely god. Every tragedy you see, every person you've lost is just you self-harming in a different mask. Believers in solipsism look for dead eyes or repetitive behavior in others as proof that the people around them are just low-effort AIs. There's a lot of crossover with this one and the simulation theory, as well as the simulation theory and Boltzmann brains. My red is not your red. This concept is known in philosophy as qualia. It's the problem of subjective experience. Even if we both look at a red fire truck and agree that it is red, I have no way of knowing if your internal sensation of red looks like my internal sensation of red. It might look like blue or green. It's a biological fact that our brains hallucinate color based on light wavelengths hitting our photoreceptors. Color in this sense then doesn't exist in the physical world, but merely as an interpretation by you. So how is this a conspiracy theory? Well, if our qualia are really that different, perhaps we're being biologically tuned to see a narrow specific version of reality. If our perceptions of basic colors are different than our perceptions of more complex things, think morality, laws, time, presence of entities, is also being manipulated. Do you remember that dress in 2015 where no one could decide if it was blue and black or white and gold? Wasn't that a little bit unsettling? Well, a researcher named Pascal Wallen found that our interpretation of colors isn't just different, it's more determined by our lifestyle. The study suggested that early birds who spend more time in natural blue light saw the dress as white and gold, while night owls, who are more accustomed to artificial light, tended to see blue and black. Theorists claim that this proves our very reality is malleable. If something as objective as a photo can be seen as two completely different things by two completely different people, then the truth is a social construct. The elite use this to fracture society by giving different groups different inputs so they can never fundamentally agree on what's real. In terms of the methodology, people tend to disagree, but you'll hear standard education, food additives, GMOs, but mostly social media. Look around you right now. Do you think there are colors in the room with you right now that your brain has been trained to filter out as empty space? Moving on to the Publius Enigma. This was a musical ARG, or alternate reality game, that never actually reached a satisfying conclusion, which left the door open for some very dark theories. The origins in 1994. During the Pink Floyd Division Bell tour, an anonymous internet user named Publius posted in a Usenet group. Publius claimed there was a hidden rule within the album's lyrics and artwork. The user promised a great prize for the one who solved it. To prove their connection to the band, Publius predicted that during a concert at Earl's Court, the words Enigma Publius would appear on the stage lights, and it happened. While their manager later claimed it was a marketing stunt, the band members themselves have been evasive or completely denied involvement. This has led to many fans believing that the Enigma wasn't just a game, but a high-level intelligence test, like Cicada 3301, used by a secret society, either the Illuminati or some sort of Gnostic sect, to find properly enlightened individuals capable of pattern recognition beyond the average human. Because the prize was never found, theorists claim that Enigma is still active, waiting for a specific technological breakthrough like AI to finally decode the true message hidden within the music, which some believe is a set of coordinates or a date for a global event. Moving on to Oumuamua. Oumuamua is the first known interstellar object to enter our solar system. And it's important to note here, it is not the first interstellar object to enter our solar system, and it probably isn't the first in the last decade. Our technology is only now just getting to the point where it's good enough to consistently find and monitor these interstellar objects. Discovered in October 2012 by the Pan-STARRS telescope in Hawaii, its name Oumuamua is Hawaiian for scout, or messenger arriving first, and it had some very odd characteristics that had some people saying extraterrestrials. For example, the shape. It was extremely elongated, almost like a cigar or a pancake, roughly 100 to 1,000 meters long and dark red. Seeing such an elongated shape in nature seems to be very unusual. However, again, this is the first known interstellar object we've seen, so there isn't exactly a precedent. The primary conspiracy associated with Oumuamua is the light sail theory, because as Oumuamua left our solar system, it began accelerating. Usually comets do this normally by outgassing or vaporizing ice, but Oumuamua showed no obvious tail, dust, or gas. This led to Dr. Avi Loeb, chair of Harvard's astronomy department, arguing that the simplest explanation for the acceleration was a light sail, a piece of ultra-thin technology pushed by solar radiation pressure. Some conspiracists claim that Oumuamua isn't a rock. Oumuamua is a defunct alien probe, or perhaps a buoy, left in the dark forest of space in order to monitor Earth. NASA's unusually blurry photos are claimed sometimes to be a cover-up to hide the clearly artificial metallic structure of the craft. One more thing, the object was tumbling end over end every 8 hours. If Oumuamua is extraterrestrial in origin, this would imply perhaps a ghost ship, a massive, technological ancient vessel whose stabilization systems failed thousands of years ago and is now just a drifting tomb passing through our backyard. Not the happiest form of first contact. Unfortunately, Oumuamua was moving so fast it could not be captured by our sun's gravity, and we only had weeks to study it before it vanished forever. But remain on the lookout for more interstellar objects. Now that we have the capability, as expected, we'll be seeing a lot more soon. I mostly blame the Oumuamua alien hype on Arthur C. Clarke, who wrote the book Rendezvous with Rama. In this book, we ran out of the Greek pantheon and started using the Hindu pantheon for naming interstellar objects. In this story, there's an interstellar object almost identical to Oumuamua, which ends up being a piece of alien technology, but it is a great book and it is weirdly realistic. And I have to admit, some of these similarities are very uncanny. Moving on to the last item in tier 3 of our iceberg, the King in the North. This is another one sourced from the Bible. Daniel 11 describes a massive multi-generational war between the King of the South and the King of the North. Some modern theorists claim this is a prophecy about World War III. Theorists look for a modern world leader who fits the description of the King of the North, a powerful figure from a nation north of Israel who will invade the Middle East and trigger Armageddon. Depending on who you ask, people will claim the King of the North as Vladimir Putin, a future leader of a unified European Union, or some hidden figure from the North that will reveal himself during a global collapse. More obscure interpretation of the King of the North theory says that the king lives in a mythical land beyond the North Pole known as Hyperborea. This claim states that the king isn't a politician, but a supernatural entity or a survivor of some master race living inside of the hollow earth, accessible through a hole at the North Pole. Theorists claim the world's militaries are blockading the Arctic via the Antarctic Treaty and the Arctic Council to hide the fact that this king is preparing to return and cleanse the surface. While I love the idea of an ancient cold power that's been watching humanity for millennia, waiting for some prophecy to trigger to cleanse us, I don't like that the only evidence is a Bible verse. But that completes level 3 of our iceberg. Make sure to click the link on screen for the next level.